There's finally some clarity on one of the weirdest cross-sport dust UPS we've seen in a long time. Lionel Messi versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. What started as a few seconds of locker room footage during the 2022 World Cup in Qatar somehow turned into a full-blown international argument between the greatest footballer of his generation and one of the most powerful figures in boxing. Mexican fans, Argentine fans, neutral fans. Everybody picked a side online and went at each other for days. Now, for the first time, Messi himself has sat down and walked through exactly what happened, how he saw it, and what he thinks about Canelo's reaction. And he did it in a place nobody really expected. The podcast of another Argentine player, goalkeeper Nahuel Guzman. Guzman, who plays for Tigres in Mexico's Liga MX, has a show called Muro de Atrás. It started as a small, introspective space where he could talk about football and life with guests in a relaxed way. Once word got out that Lionel Messi would be joining him, that small space turned into a global spotlight. The episode immediately became a media event because everyone knew the big questions were coming. For just over an hour, Messi and Nahuel talked through career milestones, personal reflections, and some of the Messier chapters that have followed the Argentine number 10 across his career. Among those, Guzman brought up an incident that lit up social media during Qatar 2022, the viral video from Argentina's locker room after the group stage match against Mexico. If you remember the scene, Argentina had just beaten Mexico 2-0 in a high-pressure game. The win basically kept Messi's World Cup alive and pushed Mexico to the brink. Cameras went into the Argentine dressing room afterward and captured a few seconds of the players celebrating. In that clip, you can see a Mexico jersey on the floor near Messi's feet. At one point, while he's trying to remove his own boots, his foot brushes against the shirt. Those couple of frames are what exploded into controversy. From a Mexican side, a lot of people saw that and immediately felt disrespected. Many interpreted it as Messi kicking the Mexican shirt on purpose. Saul Canelo Alvarez was one of the most vocal. As the face of Mexican boxing and a massive national symbol in his own right, Canelo saw that clip and went straight to social media, posting a series of angry messages on X, then Twitter, aimed directly at Messi. He accused him of disrespecting Mexico, disrespecting the jersey, disrespecting an entire country. Some of the phrases he used were strong enough that they went worldwide within minutes. It was rare territory. A superstar from one sport openly calling out another global icon from a completely different sport, not over politics or business, but about what he thought he saw in a post-game locker room. Fans poured gasoline on the fire. Thousands of accounts jumped in, some defending Messi, explaining locker room habits, others backing Canelo, and saying a player at Messi's level should know better than to let an opponent's jersey touch the floor, let alone make contact with it. Hashtags trended. Old debates about Mexico versus Argentina in World Cups resurfaced. And like most things on the internet, nuance disappeared fast. That's the context Nahuel Guzman raised on his podcast. He put on the table directly the video, the angry reaction from Mexicans, Canelo's threats, and how it all fell from the inside. Messi's response was calm, measured, and honestly, exactly what you'd expect from someone who has spent his life inside professional locker rooms. He started by pointing out that this was never, in his mind, about disrespecting Mexico or anyone else. For him, what happened in that video was just a normal scene after a match. Players come off the field drenched in sweat. Jerseys are soaked. You strip them off, toss them on the ground, on a bench, wherever, and focus on recovery, talking to teammates, ice, showers. He reminded listeners that anyone who has actually played football at any serious level understands how dressing rooms look after 90 minutes. Kits on the floor are not a statement. They're just proof that a game was played. Messi also mentioned that he believed the shirt in question was Andres Guardado's, a player he respects deeply and someone he has known for years. It wasn't some random jersey ripped off in anger. They had swapped shirts, as players often do out of mutual respect. He took off his own, took off Guardado's, and both ended up on the ground like any other piece of gear in that space. You take off your shirt and put it down because it's all sweaty, just like your own, he explained in essence. I take mine off and put there too. It's the most normal thing in the world. For him, all the outrage that followed was built on a misunderstanding of that basic reality. He made it clear there was no celebration at Mexico's expense in that moment. No symbolic gesture with the jersey. He wasn't stomping on it. He wasn't kicking it around. He was trying to get a tight boot off his foot and barely brush the fabric. The cameras caught it from just the right angle, and the internet did the rest. Messi also acknowledged that this was, in many ways, where a lot of Mexican frustration with him started or reached a new level. He understands that people saw a short video with zero context and reacted emotionally, but he stood firm on one point. What was being built around that clip had nothing to do with what actually happened in the room or in his head. From his side, this was a pile-on that turned a nothing moment into a global incident. Nahuel Guzman then added another layer to the conversation. As an Argentine who has played in Mexico for years and understands both cultures from inside, he talked about the broader tension that already exists between Mexican football fans and the Argentine national team. He pointed out that in several recent World Cups, Argentina has been the team that ends Mexico's run. In 2006 and 2010, they knocked Mexico out in the round of 16. In Qatar 2022, even though it wasn't a direct elimination match in the knockouts, Argentina's winning the group put Mexico in a terrible position. El Tri ended up failing to reach the knockout stage, and many fans connected that emotionally to Messi and Argentina again. In Mexico, there's this long-standing obsession with reaching the Quinto Partido, the fifth game at a World Cup, meaning a quarterfinal appearance. Time and time again, they've stalled at the round of 16. For some fans, Argentina has become the symbol of that disappointment. So when the world saw Messi's foot graze a Mexico jersey on camera, it didn't land on blank ground. It landed on years of built-up frustration. Guzman basically said that from the Mexican side, the anger wasn't just about one jersey on a locker room floor. It was also about what Messi represents. The player whose national team has been standing between Mexico and that next step for a long time. Hearing both perspectives laid out in a quiet studio, without yelling, without social media noise, made the whole confrontation look very different. You had one of the greatest footballers ever calmly breaking down what a normal dressing room routine is, and another Argentine player explaining, almost like a cultural translator, why people in Mexico took it the way they did. What you didn't hear was Messi attacking Canelo. There was no insult, no counterpunch. He didn't drag the boxer's name to the mud or mock him for overreacting. He just dismissed the idea that there was any intentional disrespect and moved on. That alone says a lot. When you remember how inflamed the conversation got in 2022, it's almost surreal to see how simple the explanation is from Messi's side. No master plan, no hidden message, just a shirt on the floor after a high-stress match. This whole thing is a reminder how easily images can be ripped from context and turned into something bigger, especially when national pride is involved. For Mexican fans, the shirt symbolizes more than fabric. It's the flag, the anthem, the history. For players in a shared professional environment, especially right after a match, it's a piece of equipment that gets cleaned and replaced. The same clip can mean two completely different things depending on who's looking at it and what emotional baggage they bring with them. The podcast appearance also shows just how much Messi's presence still shapes every conversation. He's a world champion now. He has nothing left to prove on the pitch. But one short comment about a controversy from 2 years ago is enough to make headlines across Latin America and beyond. It also, in a way, gives everyone permission to finally let this go. Because once the central figure says, there was nothing there, it was misunderstood, it becomes harder to keep the outrage alive. For Canelo, this moment indirectly offers a way out as well. He reacted quickly and emotionally back then, based on a viral clip and public pressure to defend his country. Messi's explanation doesn't attack him. It just quietly undercuts the idea that there was malicious intent. That opens the door for both sides to move forward without needing a dramatic reconciliation scene. And for Mexican and Argentine fans, hearing Nahuel Guzman talk about World Cup history, eliminations, and a fifth game obsession adds needed context. It doesn't justify online threats or insults on either side, but it explains why this particular spark lit such a big fire. From a bigger perspective, this entire episode is a case study in how modern sports work now. You're not just dealing with 90 minutes on the field. Every camera angle, every behind-the-scenes shot, every leaked video becomes part of the conversation. When the people in that footage are global icons like Messi and Canelo, the stakes get multiplied. One dressing room moment during Qatar 2022 created headlines in two completely different sports. A year and a half later, a calm conversation between two Argentines on a podcast in Mexico is what finally cools it down. So the next time you see a 10-second clip of a locker room or a training ground blowing up your timeline, this is worth remembering. There's always a full context, a culture, a rivalry, a personal routine, sitting behind that short video. In the end, what we have now is simple. Lionel Messi has finally explained, in his own words, that there was no deliberate disrespect toward Mexico or its jersey. Now, Guzman has put into words why Mexican fans took it so personally in the first place. And the much talked about tension between Messi and Canelo Alvarez starts to look less like a true feud and more like the product of misunderstanding amplified by national pride and the internet. The controversy that once had two countries